Other questions? Yep.
Not so much a question, but we have to recognize that the powers behind the transgender movement understand that they weren't created that way, and that's why they want access to the impressionable aid to transfer that.
Yeah, so let me say it. I guess this is looking at time, so this will probably be the last question, but my understanding, I've spoken with Dr. McHugh. Dr. McHugh is now in his 80s. He was the chief of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins for like 30 or 40 years. He served in President Bush's Bioethics Council. He's just a remarkable scholar. I think he's a Harvard undergrad and a Harvard MD. So very well educated. He was at the top of his field. And he says there are two kind of prototypical forms of transgender identity. He said one is the Bruce Jenner phenomenon. He said once he saw the Vanity Fair cover, he knew from all of his clinical experience, kind of what type of transgender phenomenon we were witnessing. And he says it's a phenomenon known as autogynephilia, a type of self-arousal based upon the type of image that you think other people are aroused by. And so he said that Bruce Jenner has transformed himself, and the Vanity Fair cover shoot very much displayed this, into the type of woman that he thinks other people are aroused by, and he finds that arousing. That's what Professor McHugh was saying, that from decades of treating transgender patients, that's part of what's going on. He said a different type is what happens in childhood. And he says frequently children go through a stage where they just don't identify with the stereotypical manifestation of their gender. So maybe they're not playing with trucks when they're 5, or they're not playing with G.I. Joe, or they're not playing football. Whatever it is at a particular age state. And he says that the advice he would give families is help them identify with some other aspect of their gender and wait a year or two, and this will most naturally just go away. So the 5-year-old boy doesn't enjoy playing with G.I. Joe. By the time he's 7, he loves launching rockets in the backyard. The worst thing you could do is tell the 5-year-old, oh, that's because you're actually a girl trapped in a boy's body, and let's start putting dresses on you and giving you puberty blockers and all the rest. And then forcing your teachers to call you by feminine pronouns and giving you a woman's name. He says, look, children are incredibly impressionable. The brain is incredibly plastic. And what we know from neuroscience is that brains are constantly rewiring themselves to have certain pathways, neural pathways that are solidified. I mean, so from a classical philosophy and kind of like a Christian moral theology person, we would call these things virtues. We develop certain habits. Now we know from neuroscience that it's not just a matter of the will, it's also a matter of the brain, that we actually create kind of like deep-seated neural connections based upon certain beliefs and certain actions that we habituate. Well, the same thing is true for gender identity. You have a young, impressionable brain, it's making all sorts of connections, it's wiring certain identities, that just, had you not intervened in this way, chances are the child would just naturally grown out of it. And so one of the worst things you could do is actually tell the 5-year-old boy that he's actually a girl and start raising, because then it makes it that much more difficult to come out of it. And that's why medical professionals like McHugh are concerned about what's going on with these school policies, because it strikes them that it's actually setting people up who otherwise would have never had significant struggles with their gender identities for much greater struggles in life because of these misguided policies, all conducted in the name of social justice. So with that, I think we're going to take a next break.